Good morning, hi, my name's Ceri and welcome back to the House of Light kitchen. I'm re-inspired and re-excited as we have been struggling as a venue through the COVID times, but we did welcome a yoga group back here just over a week ago. We had a wonderful Ashtanga yoga group come from Germany, and it was an absolute pleasure to host them here and to feed them and to have that energy back in House of Light. So myself and my co-chef and friend Jenny were in our element in the kitchen cooking up a storm. So today I'm going to be sharing one of the recipes that we use, and it's quite a standard actually at House of Light. It's one of the favourites that we use here. So I'll be sharing the recipe of a roasted vegetable lasagna with you today. So as always, I'll just be talking through and cooking. I won't be going into much of the measurements and the amounts, but when we post this video to the YouTube channel and the Facebook page, then we'll list all the ingredients and the amounts there. So if you do want to recreate the recipe, that's a bit easier than trying to remember as I talk. So yeah, for me, it's one of my favourite recipes, and especially for this time of year, because it kind of bridges that gap. We're coming to the end of the summer where my diet is a lot more salad-based, raw, high energy. We've got the flavours in this one of the basil and the tomatoes, really reminiscent of the summer flavours. But then the end product, you get this lovely, hearty, warm, comfort food dish of the hot bubbling lasagna. So the other flavours that we've got going through it today are things again that are at the end of the summer veg garden. We have a garden here at House of Light, so we have aubergines from the garden, butternut squash. The basil is some red peppers, the onions. So again, all of those summer flavours, but also mixing in some root vegetables. So we're going to have the sweet potato in there and kind of bring in that more kind of grounding aspect. So the lovely Sally is off screen. She's with me, but she's looking at the laptop. So any questions or queries that you have, then please just write them in and I'll do my best to answer them. So what I've done today, just to make it a little bit quicker, I've done a little bit of prep. So I've already roasted off the vegetables. So I've done a large tray of vegetables. It was about half a large butternut squash, 2 medium-sized sweet potatoes, I use shallots, but you can use onions. I keep the veg fairly chunky. I'll just show you here. So you keep some texture. It doesn't just go into like a smooth paste. We've got red peppers in there. They were out of the garden, so they were small. If you're using large aubergines, I'd say probably just 1 large aubergine. This was 3 smaller ones. A couple of carrots, and then olive oil, salt and pepper, and I put in some sage and some rosemary. And another addition is some whole garlic cloves. Again, if that's not to your taste, you can either just crush one and mix it through so it's more of a subtle flavour, but I love the little sweet explosions of garlicky flavour that you get when you use the whole clove. So I put in about 4 whole cloves of garlic in there and just roasted it off in a fairly hot oven, about 200 degrees, for about 45 minutes. And I open the door halfway through and just turn it over to check that it's not burning. So there's the roast veg already prepped. The other thing that I prepped is a tomato sauce. So that was simply 2 medium onions diced, and I fried those off in olive oil. Then added 2 tins of organic chopped tomatoes. And then I also had some tomatoes from the garden. So again, I'll give amounts later when we post it, but a good handful of roughly chopped, it's a mixture of cherry tomatoes and large tomatoes from the garden, and just simmer all that down until it starts to thicken. I love to add a little sweetness to any tomato sauce, and for me, for this dish, molasses is perfect because it's not too sweet and it really adds a depth and a richness. So it's perfect for tomato sauces. So I put in about a heaped teaspoon of blackstrap molasses and some salt and pepper. and just allowed that to reduce down, probably on a low heat over about 15 or 20 minutes. So we've now got a really thick, rich, tasty tomato sauce to layer up with everything else that's going in. So, cleverly or possibly foolishly, I'm going to make the cheese sauce live, because I thought I would just share this with you. This is the bit that I'm always a little bit anxious about, because it can go wrong, and I don't know if anybody else feels the same. But you start off with a roux and then you start to add the milk, and sometimes it goes really lumpy. So I thought I'd just do this live just to share that anxiety with you guys, and let's just move through it together, and I'll try and give you some top tips for that not to happen. So we're just going to move over towards the cooker to make our cheese sauce. So I've started off, top tip number 1, I would say don't have the heat too fierce. The hotter the heat, the faster you have to do everything, because the quicker things are going to catch or burn. So just keep everything a little bit calmer by having the flame a little bit lower. I've melted, again I will measure it, but I'm guessing about 100 or 150 grams of organic butter in the pan. And then we're going to start off by making the roux, which is a combination of the butter and the flour. So I'm going to take, I always do this by eye. I've kind of reached a point with it where I feel more comfortable to just measure it and watch and see the consistency as I cook. So I'm just going to be giving rough estimates right now. But so first of all, I'll sprinkle in about 2 tablespoons of plain flour and just start to mix that in, see how it gets absorbed with the butter. This is the point where you can eliminate lumps. This is really the key time. So at the moment, if you can just see, it's still fairly runny. I'm going to go with a little bit more flour, so another heaped tablespoon of flour going in there and mixing it in. It's starting to thicken now. Another top tip for me, the best thing is a balloon whisk. It's something that just eliminates the lumps really effectively. So again, keeping it really smooth, I'm just going to go for a tiny bit more, maybe about another half tablespoon, until we get to quite a nice thick, almost the consistency of a paste, almost a dough. Just a little bit more loose than a dough consistency. So once we're there, keeping it on a very low heat, I'm going to start to slowly add milk. So really just trickling the milk in, and keep going with the balloon whisk to make sure that no lumps appear. So this can speed up as you add more milk, but just starting off really slowly. It might start to look like it's going a bit cloggy and lumpy. So another top tip for me, if you feel like that is happening, you can turn the heat off at this point. Again, just to slow the whole process down, just until you feel like you've got it back under control and the milk is getting mixed in nice and smoothly and you're not getting lumps anymore. It will get to a certain consistency where it's really easy to add the milk. So keep stirring, keep stirring. Don't forget to turn the heat back on, by the way, otherwise that really won't work. So now, don't know if you can see in there, it's turning into a creamy, loose consistency, lump-free. I mean, that would have also been good to share that with you, just to, you know, say it happens to everybody. I've even done things in the past like sieving it at the end, and you can get away with it, but obviously it's much better to keep it smooth at this stage. So I'm going to put the heat back on now. You could even put it a little higher at this point because we're kind of through the danger zone. I'm just going to keep now adding milk. I'm guessing to the 100 or 150 grams of butter to 3.5, 4 large tablespoons of flour. I'm going to add about probably over 500 mils, maybe 750 mils of milk. but I promise accurate measurements will follow. So it's going to get to the point where it's really the consistency of milk. It's really quite runny. At this point you can turn the heat up. So I'm going to keep chatting to you guys, but I'm going to stay with the sauce, because this is another mistake of mine that I've made in the past, is to try and multitask while doing a bechamel sauce. They just don't go together, I think. I mean, anyone that can, fair play to you, respect. But for me, I have to stay with it. The moment you turn your back, even if it's just a thin layer at the base of the sauce that starts to cook while the rest stays milky, to try and get that mixed back into a smooth sauce is quite tricky. So just keep it moving around in the pan. You'll feel at some point, you'll feel some resistance on the base of the pan as it does start to thicken, but as long as you keep stirring it, this will happen really evenly. So another option, I have made vegan versions you can find online, and in many cookery books you can find ways to make vegan bechamel sauce. Most of them involve replacing the butter with coconut oil, and then obviously using a vegetable-based milk. One thing that I would bear in mind, a lot of the vegetable milks, even if they have no added sugar, they are naturally really sweet. So the oat milk and the rice milk are really sweet. So you will end up with that sweetness in your sauce. I would recommend to go for a no added sugar almond milk, maybe, as they tend to be a bit more neutral, have a bit more of a neutral flavour. Then when it comes to getting that cheesy taste for your vegan sauce, there's some brilliant vegan cheeses out there on the market now which you can use. But just to get that kind of little zing, that kind of tangy cheesy taste, nutritional yeast is fantastic. It comes in like a flake form. You can sprinkle that in at the end when your sauce is thickened. Marmite is a brilliant one. It's that's a bit of a top tip in vegan kitchens to get that cheesy taste. You can also, it's a bit more work, but if you're running a vegan kitchen, you might well have cashew nut cheese in the fridge, where you soak cashews and blitz them up and add salt and lemon juice. That's also really yummy to make a vegan version of this. So I'm just staying with the sauce at the moment. I can start to feel it slightly thicken. Because I'm not doing a vegan version today, I'm just doing a vegetarian lasagna. So I've used organic butter and whole milk, and I'm going to be using a mixture of Parmesan and quite a strong local sheep's cheese. But really tailor that flavour to your needs. You know, you can use any type of cheese to flavour the sauce. You can also, something I have done in the past, is layering mozzarella through the lasagna as well. So I won't be doing that today, but that's just another option if you're a bit of a cheese freak like me and sometimes want extra cheese into it. So I'm going to keep stirring this, just keep checking. It's starting to thicken at the base, so just stay with it. It's still looking fairly runny at the moment to the eye. It still looks like a milky consistency. So the only way that you can tell that it's starting to get there is by the feel of it. So I'm just going to stay with that. I was just going to share with you as well, this is one of my favourite recipes, not only because it's delicious and all of the adults in our household love it, but my kids, my 3-year-old and my 5-year-old, absolutely wolf it down. And I haven't even had to hide or blend the vegetables, they're there, so they're actually getting, you know, the aubergine, the carrot, the sweet potato, the squash, the onions, which if I gave it to them in any other form, they would not touch it with a barge pole. So yeah, I just love it when I put this plate of lasagna in front of them and they just wolf it down, and I know that they're getting all of those vegetables into their system. So it's really starting to, I can feel it thickening up now, and I can even see a change in consistency. As I move the whisk through the sauce, it's kind of leaving a trail behind it now as it starts to thicken. At this point, you'll notice that the change starts to happen quite quickly. Once you can feel that thickening and see it, it's going to be thickening quite quickly. Make sure that you get to the corners of the pan and the edge, anywhere that bits might potentially get stuck. Keep the whole sauce moving. Again, at any point, if you feel like it's happening too quickly, turn the heat down. Just give yourself a little bit more time. The whole process can just be slowed down. I'm just going to keep the heat high so that it just keeps moving quite quickly. And it's getting really thick now. The whisk is actually leaving lines in the surface. I will just show you in a moment when we're done. It's probably about the consistency of custard now, and we're aiming to get it a little bit thicker than that. So I'm just going to keep the heat on for 1 or 2 minutes longer. It's really starting to thicken. Wonderful, we're almost there. Okay, and it will also add, as you add the cheese, I'm going to turn the heat off now and show you the consistency. As it cools a little bit and as you add the bulk of the cheese in, that also adds a bit more thickness and a bit more. So you can see it's still runny, it still runs off the whisk, but it's a lot thicker. It's a little bit thicker than custard, and there's quite a lot of resistance as you stir it. So important to turn the heat off before you add the cheese. The cheese can go quite rubbery and stringy if you keep trying to cook the sauce and add the cheese at the same time. So as I say, I've got a mixture of sheep cheese and Parmesan in here. I'm going to use about 3/4 of this in the sauce, and I'm going to save a little bit back to sprinkle on the top. I'm just going to add that in now. So there's other flavours that you can add depending on, on your taste buds. Sometimes I put some smoked paprika in. You can add a little bit of chili powder if you like a little bit of kick. Some people like nutmeg in this sauce. So really be creative, be playful with it. Just be a bit experimental and try some different flavours. So it's already thickening again as I'm mixing that cheese through. I'm going to put a good sprinkle of sea salt in there. Again, all of this is down to your own taste, so start with smaller amounts, keep tasting and add a little bit more. Some cracked black pepper. Mix it all in. Crucial to taste food. How do you know that you've made it perfect if you don't taste it? You don't want to leave it until that moment when you're serving up to find out whether it's yummy or not. So make sure. Yeah, that tastes good. So now I'm going to come back over to the other area and show you how to layer this up. Okay, so the only other things that I haven't talked about yet, I've got some chopped spinach here, and I've got the fresh basil out of the garden. So these are the roast veggies. I'm just going to take out, I left the herbs quite chunky, so that's sage and rosemary that was through there. And what I like to do is use the same roasting tray that you roasted the veg in. There's no need to wash it. You've got all of those yummy kind of sticky flavours in the bottom of there that not only add taste, but instead of having to oil a baking tray to stop the lasagna from sticking, you've now got one pre-prepared. So just put in the roast veg into a separate bowl for a moment. And any lasagna sheets are fine. I like to use, for the colour mainly, these the green lasagna sheets, some nice organic ones with some spinach through them, I think. So just working out how to do this little jigsaw puzzle of lasagna sheets in whatever tray that you're using. I'm often snapping them in half so that they fit neatly into the tray. So I do a layer of lasagna on the base. Then I'm going to do the first layer of roasted veg. So there'll be 2 layers. You want to make sure that you're using roughly half in the base and saving half back for the next layer. Yum! Putting all those yummy flavours in there, making sure that it's spread out evenly. Same with the tomato sauce. I mean, it's always handy to have some left over. It's great to have tomato sauce in the fridge to go on pasta or to use in, you know, loads of different dishes. But you do want to have enough that you're going to have a second layer. So I'm going to add now this delicious, rich tomato sauce with that nice texture from the roughly chopped tomatoes as well as the tinned ones. In there. So I'm now going to add a little sprinkle of basil.
Can you move the roasted veg to the side?
Yeah, sure. And 1 layer of spinach. Again, I mean, this is just brilliant again to get into the kids, knowing that there's spinach in there, but also for the colour. Looks amazing when you slice through and serve up and you've got all of the roast veg, the vibrant red of the sauce, and then the zingy green of this spinach. Looks fantastic. So we're now going to do a second layer of lasagna sheets. I just do snap a little corner off like that because it fits better in the tin. My OCD nature coming through, always handy. So you'll be able to fit more into the second layer as it gets a bit wider at the top. So same thing over again. Second layer of the roasted veg. Spreading out evenly. Remember to push it right into the corners so that you don't get some portions that are slightly disappointing. You want all these flavours spread evenly all over the dish. Another good serving of tomato sauce. So you don't need to, with most lasagna sheets nowadays, you don't need to pre-cook them at all. You put them in raw, and it's the juices from the veg and the tomato sauce or whatever sauces you're using that softens the pasta and cooks it from raw. So that's all the tomato sauce gone in. Spread that out. 1 more sprinkle of basil. Just the last remains of that summer flavour going in. Topping it up with the spinach. This is so my style, it's going to hardly fit in the pan. I just can't cook small at all. It always ends up enormous. So 1 final layer of pasta on top before we add our cheese sauce. So while I'm talking about sauces as well, the next live stream that I'm going to do, the next food one, is going to be about sauces. There's 2 or 3 of my favourite sauces that can go on a huge variety of different dishes. They're just packed full of flavour. So even if you have a base that is just quite wholesome but quite plain, like you just want a huge bowl of steamed veg, or you just fancy a bowl of rice, but you want something just to zing it up and add a bit of flavour, then yeah, there's 2 or 3 of these sauces that we make in the House of Light kitchen that are just perfect for that. There's one that's like a ginger, turmeric, carrot one, and another one that's a Jenny speciality, which is kind of a variation on a satay sauce. So yeah, that'll be the next foodie thing coming up. So now I'm just going to try and fit this in the pan without it all overflowing over the edge. So this yummy, rich, creamy cheese sauce. Oh God, it's such a decadent dish. I love it. I love it. Such comfort food. It's just the best. And then I normally serve this with just quite a simple green salad, maybe just salad leaves and tomato and avocado, something quite plain like that. If you really want to go all out, if you've got guests, you can sling garlic bread in there as well. But okay, I'm just going to get the remainder of the cheese. Just a sprinkle on top there. So sorry, I didn't really pause to show you, but you could see the consistency there of the sauce as it goes on. It's really thickened up. It's really quite gloopy and yummy. So we've got the cheese on top. Got a little bit of basil left over, so I might as well just sprinkle that on just to make it look pretty. So there we go. There is my transition from summer into autumn, perfect comfort food dish, packed full of goodness and heaps of vegetables. And I've got an oven heating up there. It's on about 175 or 180. And I put the lasagna in for, all ovens are a little bit different, so keep your eye on it. But I'd say about 45 minutes, maximum an hour, and that will be bubbling on top, and the pasta will all be cooked and all of the juices will have kind of mixed in, and you'll end up with a delicious roasted vegetable lasagna. So thank you very much for joining me today. I hope that you can go and make this recipe and enjoy this recipe. If you have any questions now or later on, then please do post them, and I'll get round to answering them as soon as I can. And yeah, I will see you next time in the House of Light kitchen, where we'll be whipping up some yummy sauces. Okay, goodbye for now.